3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the place where you're not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS, number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. You got Stuart Kovacs, Moist Mike, rocking and rolling with me all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific today. Coming up an hour 20 from now, his team is off to the Final Four for the first time since 2005, the Sweet 16, I should say. Brad Underwood, the head coach of the Fighting Illini, going to stop by at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. And then at 5:20 p.m. Eastern time today, 2:20 p.m. Pacific, Steven Ashworth, the Creighton guard who led Creighton in that epic comeback, double overtime victory up against Oregon, was their leading scorer. He's going to join us. All righty. Let me start with this right out of the gate. We'll do a ton of NCAA tournament today. Whenever Shohei Ohtani does speak, he's going to address reporters but not take questions. So there's a whole lot cooking in. We have the NFL owners meetings underway, so there's a lot of audio that is funneling out from that. But let's start with the tourney from the weekend. When we went into Friday, by far and away, the biggest loser was Kentucky. Now, when you look at it from when we got off on Friday to when we return here on Monday, I would say there's one more team that gets thrown into the biggest loser category from the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, and that's Auburn. Kentucky and Auburn are the 2 teams, both coming from the SEC, that I'm thoroughly disappointed in. And both of them share a few similarities in how they lost. You know, in these NCAA tournament games, when you're going up against Oakland, when you're going up against Yale, and you give that team a little life. The building, where sure there's going to be Kentucky fans because of the brand. Sure there's going to be Auburn fans because of the brand. But a lot of times in these neutral site locations, there's a lot of people that enter the building that don't have a dog in the fight. And when you get to a situation where the game is close, or Cinderella's either in control or in striking distance, and there's about 10 minutes left in the game, that building turns on Big Bad Kentucky, and that building turns on Big Bad Auburn. The Auburn performance, though, in how it was similar to the Kentucky performance, and I'm still mystified by this days after the fact, is how many opportunities both those schools were able to get to survive and advance. Like Kentucky and Auburn both played a pedestrian style of basketball. They were both underwhelming in the first 35 minutes of the game. But with all the mistakes that they made, in the final 5 minutes, they still had an opportunity to survive and advance. And they weren't able to do so. And it'd be one thing if Oakland or Yale hit a big shot right at the buzzer and you lose. But how many missed layups did Auburn have? How many missed layups did Kentucky have? And how many errant passes were there? I hate to just say that those 2 teams weren't mentally tough enough, but watching it in a big moment, both of those teams could not rise to the occasion. And we've seen tournament teams not play their best, and they still find a way in the final few minutes to put the game away. And it would have been one thing if Auburn or Kentucky were just ran off the court, and with 5 minutes to go, the game was out of reach, and it was too little too late to make a comeback. But both of those games, the game was in the balance. It was up in the air in the final few minutes. And Oakland and also Yale, with as great as they played, I'm not taking anything away from those 2 schools, but as great as they played, they still allowed Auburn and Kentucky, the Tigers and the Wildcats, countless amount of opportunities to either go tie the game or take control of the game. And it's one thing with Kentucky, with 2 of your youngsters that are projected to go in the top 10 of the draft, top 5 of the draft, and their lack of NCAA tournament experience, just projectile vomiting on the big stage. And you had a Kentucky player dribble the ball off his foot. You get stuffed at the rim on a dunk. You throw the ball out of bounds 9,000 times. But then on the other hand, Auburn basically saw what Kentucky did on Thursday evening, and then they replicated it on Friday evening. And it's wild because Auburn just went through the gauntlet of the SEC, where they had such a great moment of euphoria winning a SEC tournament championship, the second SEC tournament championship under Coach Bruce Pearl, and then they couldn't get up for the moment against Yale. And nothing against Yale. Their coach has been around for a long time. But when you look at the talent Kentucky has, when you look at the talent that Auburn has, and you compare it to the lack of talent that Oakland and that Yale has, these games shouldn't have been close. But when you allow a game to be close and you kind of walk through the court and walk through the park and you don't have that fight, you don't have that hunger, and then in a snap of a finger, you try to go get the game back, it was like those two teams weren't even on the court for the first 35 minutes. And that's the crazy part to me of this one. Because you play Kentucky, Oakland, you play Auburn, Yale 10 times, maybe Oakland and Yale win one. And that was the one that happened in the NCAA tournament. But even with how well those two teams were playing, they allowed Auburn and Kentucky opportunities to still go win the game. And anytime they handed them the basketball and said, all right, end Cinderella, midnight's about to happen, neither the Tigers or the Wildcats could rise to the occasion. So through the first two rounds, through the round of 64 and then the round of 32, I'm thoroughly disappointed in the Wildcats and the Tigers. I am. And you would think I'd be more disappointed in Kentucky because I had them going to the championship game. But I'm actually more disappointed in Auburn because it followed the upset of Kentucky. And it'd be one thing if one school was in the ACC and the other was in the Big East. In a conference you play in, you saw the school the night before in Kentucky that has a boatload of talent get stunned by Oakland and make mistake after mistake after mistake. And I don't care that Auburn's playing in Spokane, Washington. They should have been better than a 4 seed, right? You can make that case. They should have got better travel arrangements. They should have got closer to their campus, and they should have got better than a 4 seed. But I don't want to hear any of that stuff being used as excuses today. I don't. Because you saw what another school did in the SEC or what they didn't do. And then you go back out the next night and you allow Yale, who wasn't even the best team in the Ivy League this year because it was Princeton, and then Princeton lost, and they got upset in the first round of the Ivy League tournament, and it's a one-bid conference, and you basically did what Kentucky did 24 hours later, or less than 24 hours later, where you made the same mistakes, and you couldn't do the simple things like pass the basketball, have good shot selection, and, I don't know, make your layups. So the two biggest losers from this weekend, by far and away, Kentucky and Auburn. Now, as far as the biggest winners, it's two conferences. It's the Big East and it's the ACC. The Big East got screwed this year. I know that there were many bids that were stolen, and we saw a crazy Friday, Saturday leading into Selection Sunday that took away like 5 or 6 bids. And you went from maybe the 3 Big East schools that were on the outside looking in, looking like maybe all 3 of them would get in, to then the thought that 1 would get in, and then the reality was none of them got in. When you see Providence get shown the door, you saw Seton Hall get shown the door, and St. John's get shown the door as well. So I'm not saying these Big East schools that are in the tourney are motivated for redemption for the other Big East schools. Because you have UConn, who's the number 1 overall seed. And if anyone keeps it within 10 points of UConn in this tournament, I would be surprised. Because that's how dominant and how much better UConn is from a championship team a year ago to where they are now in 2024. But I felt very good for Creighton, who should have lost to Oregon. You know, the big fella for Oregon makes a free throw at the end. We're not even talking about Creighton today. We're talking about them going home early. But you gave that team a second life. And eventually, in overtime and then the double OT, they were able to pull away when you had Kalkbrenner make a big 3-point shot. And Steven Ashworth, who's going to join us later in the show, he made a big 3-point shot as well. But that Creighton team was on the cusp of making the Final Four a year ago, and they lost by 1 to San Diego State. So if they would have bowed out now in the round of 32, we all would have been crushing them today. But it was good to see them survive and advance. Something Kentucky couldn't do and something Auburn couldn't do. And then I also felt elated for Shaka Smart as well, as they were the better team, and then that game got tight late, but they were still able to find a way to prevail. And now Marquette, which has disappointed in the past, is now going to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. So I thought it was cool from a Big East perspective when that was the conference that got snubbed, because you have the number 1 overall seed, then you have a 2 seed in Marquette, you have a 3 seed in Creighton, and then no one else from the conference got in. So I'm all for this Big East statement, and quite frankly, I would love to see a Final Four that features 3 out of the 4 teams being Big East schools. Because it's very easy to root for UConn, Creighton, and then also Marquette. But when we also look at other winners from this weekend, and I started off by saying it's the Big East and then it's also the ACC. The ACC is 8-1 in this NCAA tournament. And the only loss was a team that should have never been allowed into the tournament, into the field of 68, when you had that embarrassing Virginia team led by Tony Bennett that was only able to put up 14 points at half, and they lost in the play-in round. But outside of that, in what is supposed to be a down year for the ACC, and people aren't as high on the ACC as in years past, if you take Virginia out of it, the ACC is 8-0, where you have Clemson pulling off the upset of Baylor, and they almost choked it yesterday, but they pulled off the upset. UNC is a number 1 seed. Duke just smothered James Madison yesterday in Brooklyn. And then you have this great story of NC State, where their coach, Coach Keats, who joined us last week, he was probably on the verge of getting fired. Or he was really on the hot seat. And they enter the tournament, the ACC tournament, 17-14. They were on a losing streak. They win 5 games in 5 days. And then they win their first 2 games of the NCAA tournament. He gets a 2-year added on to his contract, 2-year extension from winning the ACC tournament. And now they're 40 minutes away from going to an Elite 8. The ACC, outside of Virginia, but I don't even count the round of 68 and those playing games as being in the tournament. It starts for me on that Thursday when it's the first 64 that do get in. But Clemson, UNC, NC State, and Duke all advancing to the Sweet 16 is very impressive. And UNC and Duke, it was expected. Anything short would have been a massive disappointment. But to get Clemson and to get NC State there, very, very, very phenomenal showing so far from the ACC. So through the first 2 rounds of the tournament, my biggest losers are Kentucky and Auburn. My biggest winners are the Big East and the ACC. What say you? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll take a break. When we come on back, we'll spend a few minutes talking about the women's tournament. Kim Mulkey is fighting a journalist. Caitlin Clark is frustrated, and her father wasn't happy with her antics. And one CBS Sports Radio talk show host has gone viral for a Caitlin Clark opinion. And I'm shocked, even though the opinion's wrong, that he went viral for giving this opinion. And when there's sometimes things go viral, and you're like, all right, a few million. This video or this tweet did nearly 20 million views. So we'll tell you which talk show host, I guess, got into, I don't want to say trouble. It's not like he got in any trouble. It wasn't anything that was like really that bad. But there was one talk show host here over the weekend that did make the rounds on social media. And he was getting dragged all over social media. We'll get into all that when the Zach Gelb Show returns in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So on Friday, we kind of saw what was, I would call, an appetizer tweet where Pat Forty, and I hate when journalists do this, especially when the story has nothing to do with them, where Pat Forty said there's some story brewing with Kim Mulkey and it's coming from the Washington Post, basically like should be a doozy. And when I saw that, I said, I'm not discrediting Pat's information. I'm not discrediting what the story could be about. But I don't like when journalists or people in the media say, oh, I know something, but they give us no clue what the story is about, or they don't give us enough information. I just find it to be very unnecessary, and I find it to be people in the press just trying to drive their engagement and get clicks off other people's hard work. So I didn't think it was necessary for Pat Forty to put out that tweet and not have the article drop yet. And I thought for sure this article would have dropped over the weekend. To my knowledge, it has not. And quite frankly, we know Kim Mulkey, the head coach at LSU, used to be the head coach at Baylor, just won the national championship with the Tigers a year ago. She's not thrilled with whatever this potential story is about because it is probably a hit piece about her. Now, let me be clear. When I say hit piece, that's not me taking a side, but I'm just going to assume here, judging by the Kim Mulkey response, and then also what Pat Forty tweeted, this is not going to be a positive story about Kim Mulkey. Now, just because it's not a positive story doesn't mean the content in the story is not true. But I've never have seen this much hype for an article that still hasn't dropped. Because not only did you have the Pat Forty tweet, which kind of set me off on Friday, without taking a side in this, why would you send that tweet out without giving us more information? I just think it's someone basically saying, oh, I'm at the cool kids table. I get all the information. Let me do all the gossiping, and then someone else will do the dirty work. And then Kim Mulkey, she just went off before one of her NCAA tournament games, and she read a statement, and she was fiery. And I've said this before many times on the show. I think Kim Mulkey is the most intimidating coach in all of sports. Like, I had a tweet last year that if I was her grandchild, I would never want to get her upset because I would just be afraid of grandma maybe sounding off and doing some scolding behind the scenes of a grandchild. She intimidates me. And I've heard stories, of the old Baylor football coaching staff that they would ask Kim Mulkey, could they use the basketball court in the offseason in the summer and have a little coach's game. And Kim Mulkey would come out of her office on her balcony and she would scream at the male football coaches, if you guys don't start playing some defense, I'm going to rip all your asses off the court. So she's very intimidating. And I would not want to be on the wrong side of Kim Mulkey. But let's listen up. So this is all about the Pat Forty tweet. This is a domino effect. Like Pat Forty sends out this tweet. There's going to be a piece coming out from the Washington Post regarding Kim Mulkey. Kim Mulkey then responds, and we still have not had the article yet. But here is Kim Mulkey calling out the reporter that I guess is writing an article that is not very positive about her.
This reporter has been working on a story about me for 2 years. After 2 years of trying to get me to sit with him for an interview, he contacts LSU on Tuesday as we were getting ready for the first round game of this tournament with more than a dozen questions, demanding a response by Thursday, right before we're scheduled to tip off. Are you kidding me? This was a ridiculous deadline that LSU and I could not possibly meet, and the reporter knew it. It was just an attempt to prevent me from commenting and an attempt to distract us from this tournament. It ain't gonna work, buddy.
When she says it ain't gonna work, buddy, man, I was really intimidated what was going to be the next words to come out of her mouth. But here's the part that I don't get here. It's obvious that this is going to be an article that attacks Kim Mulkey, attacks her character, something that must have happened in the past with a player or maybe an assistant coach. Like, I could only assume because I don't have the article yet. But it doesn't sound right when you go, okay, this, I think she at one point called him a sleazy reporter in the rant, that she said this reporter basically hit you up last second to get a comment. You even said it, though, a few sentences earlier. This reporter's been trying to contact you for 2 years. So if I had to just put my journalist cap on, and I'm not a journalist, but I know people that are journalists, and we're in the media, so sometimes I get accused of being a journalist. I think there's a difference of being a journalist and a talk show host. I'm going to say that this was a last attempt effort before publishing the story that still has not come out, where they're trying to get Kim Mulkey to speak. But it doesn't mean that Kim Mulkey wasn't granted an ample amount of time and given an ample amount of time at some point in the last 2 years to try to clear her name or exonerate herself from whatever's going to be authored and whatever's going to be written about her. Let's hear one more from Kim Mulkey. This is Kim Mulkey on how people do not trust the media anymore.
Reporters who give a megaphone to a one-sided, embellished version of things aren't trying to tell the truth. They're trying to sell newspapers and feed the click machine. This is exactly why people don't trust journalists and the media anymore. It's these kinds of sleazy tactics and hatchet jobs that people are just tired of. I'm fed up. And I'm not going to let the Washington Post attack this university, this awesome team of young women I have, or me without a fight.
Here's my biggest question. And we don't know what the Washington Post is even writing about or what they will publish. We could only assume. Is it true? Because that's the big question. You could get in front of a podium. You could have something written about you, and you could berate the reporter. You could berate the media. And I'm not saying the media is always innocent. There are some, like any profession, some really good journalists, and there's some really good people, and then there's people that are sleazy and that they're terrible at their job. But I want to know what is actually being written about Kim Mulkey. And I've never seen a buildup for an article that it better be scandalous. It better be big. It better be explosive for me to actually care about it. Because from the Pat 40 tweet to then Kim Mulkey just popping off the other day, I have never, ever in recent memory can recall a time that there were this many great appetizers being served for whatever the main course is going to be. And I hope this isn't like a wedding where they bring out all the appetizers and the cocktail hour is absolutely awesome. And then you sit down for the main course and you get a dry, overcooked piece of steak. This article, one way or another, it better deliver. And I could only just guess what the article is going to be about, and I could only assume. And you know what happens when you assume? You make a ass out of you and me. But it has to be something that isn't positive about Kim Mulkey. Now, is it enough where it's a jaw-dropping piece where you're like, oh my goodness gracious, she shouldn't be coaching in college athletics? And, you know, I'm not naive here. I'm not very political. But Kim Mulkey, and anytime she speaks, it gets turned into a political issue where you have people on the left and the right just because of who she is and how polarizing she is, that you have half the people defending her and half the people ripping her as well. Because of everything going back to COVID, when she kind of made a mockery of all the masks and everything and some of her other comments in the past. I try to stay away from all that stuff, but you can't in a situation like this, because a lot of the reaction is 50% of the people agreeing with her just because of her politics, and then 50% of the people just disagreeing with her before her politics. But when you do all the math here, we still don't have what this equals to with everything added up, because we still don't know what the damn article is about. And we could all use our brains and infer what the article is about, but until I read the article, I just can only guess. And that's the wild part, where from Friday up until today, there's just been a lot of hype. There's been a lot of buzz about this article, but still, the article has not been published. Staying in the women's game, in the women's tournament, Caitlin Clark. Two things from Caitlin Clark. So I was watching one of her performances from over the weekend. She was clearly frustrated. She was not thrilled with the refs, and she was doing a lot of complaining on the court. And at one point, I thought she was going to give herself a concussion when she took the basketball and slammed the basketball into her cabeza. Now, there are times, right, where you've seen like mothers or fathers not be happy with the decorum that their child is showing on a basketball court. But when you are Caitlin Clark and you are the face of the sport, to see her dad from the stands basically tell her to shut up and stop complaining, it just shows you that you could be as famous and successful and changing the game and drawing more attention to the women's tournament than there's ever been before, and going to new levels and new heights. But still, you're someone's daughter, and your dad was fed up and just wanted you to play basketball. Now, let me be clear. I had no problem with their complaining. I have no problem with the fire. I have no problem with the passion. But it was a very humanizing moment when, how many times, like, you go back to your youth, maybe playing youth sports. Like, this isn't college, right? You know, I'm not talking about professional sports. I'm just talking about me, where dad or mom didn't like the way that you conducted yourself in the Little League field, or on the youth league gridiron for football, or on a basketball court. Like, I'm sure Samter, when he was like a little point guard as a kid, he probably had a mouth, and he was probably popping off, and he was probably berating referees. And if Mr. or Mrs. Samter screamed from the crowd, "Hey, Mike, shut your mouth," that would be one thing. But when you're Caitlin Clark and you are an idol to people, people look up to you. You are one of the more popular athletes, not in you are the most popular athlete in your sport, but on the planet. And how much you've done for the game, Samter, I did not have that on my bingo card, that if anyone was going to go after Caitlin Clark this weekend, it was going to be her own father basically telling her to grow up and stop the complaining. That was wild to me.
I think that her father did her such a service to make her look human and to make her look vulnerable and fallible. Because without that, right, she comes off as being a superstar who's looking for maybe special treatment, or that she's acting a certain way, or that she's berating the refs.
And a lot of superstars do that. How many times does LeBron complain on it?
100%. But I think, unfortunately, because she's the center of attention for the women's game right now, she almost has to rise above it. And I think she looked bad. She looked petulant, and she looked bad.
And you know what?
Dad humanized her, and it helped.
There's so many newer eyeballs that are seeing her for the first time, and they hear so much about how great she is, and they tune in, and they basically just see her complaining for the full duration of the game. But you know what? I actually think that's signs of pressure getting to her, where she could still be the best, she could still go win the championship, and no one would be surprised. But you have so many people, like Jay Williams said such an idiotic thing, that he can't call her great because she hasn't won a championship, when she has just changed women's basketball for so much good, and she's been so transcendent to the sport. I thought it was just so stupid, where you could say she's like a great scorer, but I can't call her a great player. Maybe some of that outside noise in a lesser round, where the stakes aren't so high, you're just seeing little things that are starting to get to her, because she knows that every step she takes, or every little move she makes, just gets magnified and gets talked about times 1,000. And I know that now a lot of times we say college sports are professional sports, but these are still college-age athletes. And getting this attention, even though a lot of it is good, there are some things that could be very stressful on a human being. Now, here's one thing I did not expect over the weekend when it pertains to Caitlin Clark. Our very own Andrew Perloff from the Maggie and Perloff Show, on many of these same CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, streaming live on YouTube. I'll be a good company, man. He had a take from the Iowa game the other day. And, you know, I was down at the shore this weekend. I had a very good weekend of sports betting. I was eating well. Had my veal parm at Chef Ola's, which was absolutely phenomenal. So I was in a good mood. And a buddy of mine said, "Your boy is getting dragged on social media." So at first I was like, who's my boy that's getting dragged on social media? And I clicked the tweet, and I see that Perloff responds to the video of a player on Holy Cross, like, elbowing, a tough left elbow to Caitlin Clark's mug. So Perloff responds, "They called this an intentional foul. 2 free throws and possession. A 2-year-old could see this wasn't intentional." Now, I would love to have the following like Caitlin Clark has. Because there are some athletes or some people where if you say just the slightest thing negative about someone, or you're criticizing something, that there is a viral reaction of defense like I've never seen before. So Perloff, which I think it's a wrong take. I do think it was an intentional foul. And I do think it was something that was properly called. Or I guess the announcers on the broadcast were agreeing with Perloff. But this tweet that Perloff put out there ended up doing 18.2 million views. Like, don't get me wrong. Even though I don't think Perloff's opinion was correct, to do that many views, even I'm laughing about it. Like, that many people care. And I love Perloff. He's a friend. That Perloff disagreed with the call, and he just gets dragged on social media. You know, social media, nothing should amaze me anymore. But I'm amazed by that one. That many people wanted to drag Perloff for a take that was not correct, but he's still entitled to have the opinion. And at the end of the day, it's an opening round intentional foul. Like, that's what we're talking about in a game. I don't understand if Iowa didn't win the game, but they ended up winning the game. I've never seen a reaction like that, Samter. And I could just see Perloff, knowing him. I don't think he was trying to be polarizing. It was like innocuous. Just, he's a big basketball guy. He's going to send out a tweet, give his opinion, and not think it's an intentional foul, a little against the grain. So it fits the Perloff brand. And I've never seen a reaction from everyone just popping off on social media, just dragging Andrew Perloff. So even though I disagree with Perloff, I will say, we will support Andrew Perloff. We will blindly support Andrew Perloff. And if you want to come after Perloff, you're coming after us. All right? I don't want to see Caitlin Clark at Iowa win the tournament anymore. Obviously, that was tongue-in-cheek. That was tongue-in-cheek.
All right, now they're coming after you.
Yeah.
It's like the Taylor Swift effect, right? Once you go after Taylor Swift, you go after her whole family. Once you go after Travis Kelce or the Chiefs, you're going after Taylor Swift. So now Caitlin Clark has kind of taken on that effect, maybe not to the same level, but Caitlin Clark is defendable. And so anyone who's going to rip on Caitlin Clark or say anything negative about her, they're going to get it.
You know what?
I think right now you're in the crosshairs, buddy.
I'm going to be like Kim Mulkey. You sleazy people on social media going after Andrew Perloff. Just absolutely despicable. Also, I'm doing such a great defense of Perloff. I'm like commenting well after 24 hours since this tweet did go out. We'd let him get dragged a little bit before we try to step in and fight back here at CBS Sports Radio. All righty, we'll come on back. We'll do a little onside offside when we return. Update time first. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. The hip drop is now banned in the NFL, with owners voting to get rid of it after a number of injuries in recent years. The technique will now carry a 15-yard penalty and automatic first down. Teams will also get another replay challenge if successful. The coaching carousel is in full swing today as Kyle Smith is leaving Washington State after 5 years to become the new head coach at Stanford. And Danny Sprinkle reportedly leaving Utah State to become the new head man at Washington, while Darian DeVries is moving on from Drake, named the new head coach at West Virginia. And Vanderbilt has found its new head man, naming James Madison's Mark Byington. The Celtics own the NBA's longest winning streak. The NBA's top team goes for its 10th straight tonight in Atlanta. And the team right behind them with the longest streak is the Rockets of all teams. They have won 8 in a row and are home to take on the Blazers. They open the day a game behind the Warriors for the last spot in the play-in tournament. And Denver, with the best record in the Western Conference, the defending champs, home to take on the Grizzlies tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler inviting you to join me here on CBS Sports Radio for The Bart Winkler Show. Weeknights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break.
4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
It's time to ask the pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. All righty. Onside, offside time. Samter, what do we got cooking today?
All right, well, for the second straight year, my former team, the Jets, have, quote, won the offseason, I guess, thanks to some big free agent moves, Tyron Smith and Mike Williams. However, and almost Shaq Barrett, which, speaking of going viral, that also kind of caused some steam that he almost went to the Jets. Now, embattled head coach Robert Saleh was talking at the owners' meetings, and he understands all of that means nothing if they don't win.
When you lose, you're a loser. I suck, Joe D sucks, we all suck. So it goes with the territory. But best thing we can do is put our heads down. And like I said, we got to go to work. All the feel-good stuff for the offseason doesn't matter. We got to win football games, and when we win football games, all the narratives will change.
So onside, offside, the Jets will win 10 or more games in 2024.
I think it's right there. I think it is right there. Like, I could see them being a 10-7 football team. So since I'm like right in the middle, I know you said at least 10 games, so technically 10 would get them there. How many times have I seen this playbook?
Are we going win total over under 10.5? We're going 9.5.
If you give me 10.5,
10.5.
I'm taking the under.
Going the under.
Here's why. The Jets are the Jets, and they'll always be the Jets. Whenever they have this great offseason and the Jets are supposed to be the team to beat, I know how this ends. They don't end up living to the hype. They could finish first in the division. They also could easily finish third. I think Rodgers will have a good season. I still don't like that offensive line, even though they revamped it, because Smith is one injury away from them not having a great left tackle again. And Mike Williams, one injury away, and he gets injured a lot, for them not having a number 2 wide receiver again. When something could go wrong, it does go wrong for the Jets. So I'll say that they'll be a 9-8 football team this year. So you say the Jets will win 10 or more games in 2024, I'm going offside.
Offside.
But 10.5, yeah, I'm hammering that under. Hammering it.
I like how you had them finishing at worst third. We'll leave it to our imaginations as far as who would be the
Patriots.
Dweller. Yeah,
they suck. I'm a Patriot fan. Like, people go, when are you going to criticize your football team? Have you not been listening? I've crushed my team for 2 years. No one is more of a realistic fan than your boy.
But we've seen with C.J. Stroud that one quarterback could change an entire franchise around, so you never know.
I don't know if this team,
I'm surprised that you're so down in your team. Now, another team...
I don't know if this team, though, right now knows their difference between their elbow and their ass.
There you go. I can show you during the break, which is what the difference is.
I said I know it. My team doesn't.
Sure. Now, the Steelers completely revamped their QB room, adding Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. While most are saying Wilson was promised that he'd be the Week 1 starter, Mike Tomlin sort of left the door open.
We're not resistant to competition, but as I've mentioned several times of late, I just think it's appropriate to establish positioning as we get into this thing. And the term that I've used is Russell has pole position. And why do I use that term? Because during this time where we're not formally working, man, I just think it's beneficial.
So onside, offside, barring injury, Russell Wilson will be the starter for the Steelers the entire 2024 season.
Onsides. I think the floor for Russ in Pittsburgh is not low enough where a benching will occur. This is Russ gets the year. At the end of the year, if they really do love him, they'll ink him to a contract extension. If not, and I know that there's a 5th-year option, and that probably won't get picked up at Fields. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I'm probably on the side it doesn't. They'll find a way to work a way to have Fields as the quarterback next year. Russ is getting the opportunity. I don't believe Russ will be sensational, but I don't think Russ will be bad enough where they'll go to Justin Fields. So barring an injury, Russell will also be the starter the entire season. I will go on sides.
Now, the team that got rid of Russ, the Broncos, head into 2024 with Jarrett Stidham as their QB1, at least for now. Now, at the owners' meeting today, Sean Payton said they might be open to making a move up the draft board for a QB.
I think it's realistic. What's hard to predict, though, is like what's on the receiving end. I think it's good to be Monty today at Arizona, right? It's hard to predict what that cost is, and yet I certainly wouldn't say it's unrealistic, and we'll pay close attention to it.
Onside, offside, the Broncos will draft a quarterback in the first round.
I'm going to go offsides because I think there will be more aggressive teams that are going to be looking to move up. And even if you don't have a lot of teams moving up, Remember, Minnesota is in front of the Broncos, and Minnesota needs a quarterback as well. The Broncos are at 12, Minnesota's at 11. I think the quarterbacks are going to be 1, 2, and 3. They could be 1, 2, 3, 4. There will definitely be 4 quarterbacks in the top 6 because I think the Giants will take a quarterback as well. I believe the Broncos, now I get it, players don't tank, but organizations do. I think the Broncos are going to be as bad as they could possibly be this year. I don't believe in this team whatsoever. I think this is a past year to set up something for the future. So you say the Broncos will draft a quarterback in the first round. I will go offside.
Offside.
They're kicking the can down the road, and maybe they're going to get Shedeur Sanders.
That honestly might be the best way to do it. If you're a 12 and you can't get the guy, don't stretch. Have a down year, and then start over next year.
In the words of Rick Ross, do the Shedeur Sanders.
There you go. Now, after starting out 8-3 last year, the AFC South favorite Jaguars collapsed at the end of the season.
I don't have a watch on right now, so when I did the Shedeur Sanders, it looks like I'm telling people to bleep off or something like that.
Well, it also looks like you're showing us your friendship bracelet or whatever that is on your arm.
Oh, that's I'll tell you what that is. I don't want to put you in a bad spot. It's actually honoring a friend of mine that passed away. So, yeah, that's a little awkward. It's fine. You didn't know. It's good.
I do apologize.
Keep it moving.
Okay. Well, I will move on to that, and we will get to that another time.
It's all good.
Now, they lost the division to Houston and missed the playoffs altogether. Today, Doug Peterson admitted the 2023 season will haunt him.
It's not so much that loss as much as it is the last 6 games when we were sitting there at 8-3 and we had everything going for us and right in front of us. I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I think for me it's going to be my motivation, my fuel, moving forward. I'm not going to let it cloud the vision, but at the same time it's going to be close in my mind as I move forward with the team this spring.
Onside, offside, Doug Peterson will not be the Jaguars head coach in 2025.
That's offside with how quickly and deservedly so they had to get rid of Urban Meyer. And Urban wasn't liked, and he was just a total clown in that organization. I think Doug will be able to handle the media well enough where even if it's bad, they do afford him one more year. Year 1, he turns it around. Year 2, they regressed. And now in year number 3, you got to take a step forward and get back to what year 1 resembled. But I don't think it will be that bad where at the end of the year, even if they just missed the playoffs, you feel like you have to fire Doug Peterson. So you said Doug Peterson will not be the Jaguars coach in 2025. I will go offside.
Offside.
All right, that's onside, offside. On a Monday, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. There's a big theme coming out of the NFL owners meeting. And there's one name that continues, or we think continues to shoot up the draft boards. We will tell you who that name is, and we will tell you now the latest speculation on what pick that player could go when we return in 5 minutes on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, where there is a lot of buzz about this player, and I can't believe it. And I'm a big fan of this player, too. Coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
And away we go, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. 20 minutes from now, Illinois head coach Brad Underwood is going to join us. His team is off to the Sweet 16. And an hour 20 from now, the star of Creighton's great double overtime victory, and he was the leading scorer for the Blue Jays, Steven Ashworth, will join us. So if you listen to this show, you know I am a big fan of the Michigan football Wolverines. I believe J.J. McCarthy can be a good pro quarterback. I do not believe he could be a great franchise-altering pro quarterback, though. There is a difference. When you look at McCarthy, though, I think there's a lot of untapped potential, but it does scare me, and I get very apprehensive when we talk about prospects and untapped potential. Because McCarthy, I thought in a game where they lost against TCU in the semifinal 2 years ago, they could have asked him to do more, and if they trusted him a little bit more, I believe the first half is different. But in that game, you could see the mobility, and you could see the way where you combine the mobility into making tough throws where he could be a good quarterback. But even with saying that, I think the praise of J.J. McCarthy leading up to this draft and the overhyping of J.J. McCarthy is just flat out ridiculous. I believe there's only two quarterbacks that should warrant a top 5 pick in this draft. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Now, I'm not a dummy. I am fully cognizant that there's going to be bare minimum 3 quarterbacks in the top 5, and in all likelihood, 4 quarterbacks in the top 6, with the potential of even seeing quarterbacks go off the board 1, 2, 3, and 4 if the Arizona Cardinals trade out of that spot at 4 and they pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. and they allow the 4th quarterback to go there, whether it's a team like the Vikings, the Broncos, or the Raiders trading on up. But you would think J.J. McCarthy, with how he's getting hyped recently, is a lock, a slam dunk, and he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in short order. And I don't believe that. Like, if I see a team or a player with J.J. McCarthy go to a team, I think that's so important. It's the fit. Like, if McCarthy goes to the Commanders, I don't think he'll have success. If McCarthy goes to the Patriots, I don't think he'll have, success. Because I don't think there's enough around him. And it seems like he's shooting up the draft boards, but I don't think that's good for him. Like, yeah, you want to go as high as possible in the draft. But if he lands in a place like Minnesota, and let's say Minnesota doesn't have to come up and get him, I believe that's one of the best destinations that he could walk into because of the talent that's around him. Like, I look at these 5 or 6 quarterbacks that we all talk about. I think the fit matters the most for McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. Because you see Michael Penix Jr., when he was at Indiana, he couldn't stay healthy. Then he goes to Washington. He has 2 great years, but the roster on the offensive side of the ball was loaded with Roma Dunze, should be a top 5 pick. And then they just had the best offensive line in the country. You look at McCarthy, he had 3 great offensive lines. 2 of them won offensive lines of the year back in 2021 and 2022. And not that McCarthy had the greatest wide receivers in the world, but he had a great 1-2 punch at the running back position in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. So I don't think we've seen the best of McCarthy because Michigan, their plan that they devised up wasn't to feature J.J. McCarthy because their line and their run game was so overpowering. So McCarthy could be a better quarterback from watching his entire college career than what he put on tape and what he was asked to do. But still, with that being said, for him to potentially be the 2nd quarterback off the board, I'm not going to believe it until Roger Goodell is at the podium and Roger Goodell is saying, with the 2nd overall pick in the draft, the Washington Commanders select J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan. Like, if you want to tell me McCarthy could be the 3rd best quarterback in this draft class, and that's what you think his potential could be, okay, I could listen to it. But having him potentially go at number 2 doesn't make any sense to me. I'll get to you my rankings of these quarterbacks in the draft in just a second. But here is Tom Pelissero an hour ago on the NFL Network, and the NFL owner meetings are going on, and he's hearing the buzz. He's hearing the chatter. He's hearing the chirping and all the love about J.J. McCarthy.
It's been really interesting because everybody's always trying to figure out, especially at the top of the draft, what the other teams are doing. When I've had conversations here with executives for other teams who know Adam Peters well, know the situation well, the most popular answer for what they do at number 2 is J.J. McCarthy.
That's crazy to me. Because if you're going to tell me that the upside of J.J. McCarthy is higher than the upside of Jaden Daniels, I just don't see it. Jaden Daniels tossed 40 touchdown passes this past year. 40. And then you could say, oh, well, where's the mobility? Even with McCarthy's mobility, it's not going to be better than Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels ran for over 1,100 yards this year. 1,100. And whatever happened to Drake May? And I've been on record saying I don't want the Patriots drafting Drake May. I do not want Drake May. So many people that played the quarterback position and they hear the hype of Drake May and then they watch him on tape and they go, the other guys, you see some of it. With Drake May, you didn't. And Drake May, I think the thought of Drake May could be a great quarterback, but there's so many signs where you see little things that he does that you go, what the bleep is he thinking about and what the bleep is he doing on a football field? But still, with that being said, J.J. McCarthy individually didn't do enough to warrant the hype of going 2 in this draft. But the more and more you hear people and the more and more people opine their opinion on this draft process, the stock of J.J. McCarthy's rising. Where it went from, oh, he could be a top 10 pick, to then, oh, he's going to not fall past the Giants at 6. The Giants, if they want him, they're going to have to now trade into the top 5 to get him, to now there's a possibility that he goes to. I think it's the reverse of what happened to C.J. Stroud a year ago. And I say this all the time. This is my rule of thumb this time of the year. When you are about a month out from the draft, anything that happens a month out from the draft, I do not believe it until I see it happen. If it's something that's so foreign and if it's something that's so unheard of. Like if someone's going to say, oh, Caleb Williams is going to go number 1 to the Bears. Yeah, no crap. No bleep, Sherlock, all right? But this rise of McCarthy, now there's people that are expecting him and the buzz and the chatter is to go to. And just like last year, C.J. Stroud, well, Levis is going to go too. Oh, C.J. Stroud is in danger. He's in big-time danger of falling out of the top 5. He's not going to go 2 to the Texans. No way. And he goes 2. Anthony Richardson shortly followed him. And then Will Levis, who was getting hyped up out of the wazoo, ended up falling out of the first round. I just can't buy this McCarthy hype. And this is coming from someone that is pro-Michigan. This is coming from someone that likes J.J. McCarthy. But they're starting to make J.J. McCarthy out to be greater than what he actually is. I think he could be good if he goes to the right situation. I think he could be a solid quarterback. But do I think he's going to change a franchise? No, I don't. And right now, here's how I'll rank the quarterbacks. Caleb Williams is 1. Jaden Daniels is 2. Those are the only 2 quarterbacks that if I was running a front office, I would feel comfortable drafting in the top 5. In at number 3, Drake May. In at number 4, Michael Penix Jr. And then at 5, it's J.J. McCarthy. With all that being said, though, I'm at a point where McCarthy, even though I have him ranked behind Penix, McCarthy's definitely going in front of Michael Penix Jr. So he'll jump Michael Penix Jr. How many more quarterbacks will he jump? If you want to tell me he goes in the top 3 of quarterbacks, I could see that with where the information is. But if you're trying to tell me he's going to usurp Penix, May, and Daniels and go right behind Caleb Williams, I just can't believe that until I actually see it. Let me do this, because this is more, and I mean more McCarthy buzz. Now, this is not surprising, because this is someone that coached J.J. McCarthy. This is someone that's being loyal to J.J. McCarthy. This is someone that's going to bat for J.J. McCarthy. Let's hear the man that coached J.J. McCarthy the last few years, the former Michigan national championship winning head coach, now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Here is Jim Harbaugh praising J.J. McCarthy.
This killer comes out, and he's, whether it's good, whether it's bad, he's got an extra gear, especially when he's challenged. He's incredible. So big market, small market, it wouldn't, cold weather, hot weather, it won't matter. And I've said it before, I think it's well documented. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. He's the one who plays quarterback, of all the quarterbacks that are in the draft. There's great quarterbacks in the draft. I think he plays quarterback the best of any quarterback in the draft.
Can I just ask a simple question, Samter? What does that mean? He plays quarterback the best out of any quarterback in this draft. Like Caleb Williams doesn't play quarterback better than J.J. McCarthy. Jaden Daniels doesn't play quarterback better than J.J. McCarthy. I understand you'd rather win a national championship, but the Heisman is an individual award, and Caleb Williams won the Heisman 2 years ago. Jaden Daniels won the Heisman this past season. McCarthy, and I was someone that believed the hype earlier in the year, we were told, oh, he could win the Heisman. Guy wasn't even a finalist. And he did a good job managing that team. He did a great job sacrificing his ego because he knew the line was great and he knew that running the football was their best chance to win a championship. And you look back at that Ohio State game, he made a great throw, an incredible strike that shows the potential with that ball that he completed for a touchdown to Roman Wilson. But Daniels and Williams, I've seen dominate at an elite level individually. They didn't have the team success that Michigan's had. But if you put Williams or you put Daniels on Michigan, and I'm talking about a team that won a national championship, they'd be even better. Because Williams and Jaden Daniels play the position better than J.J. McCarthy does. So I don't get Jim Harbaugh saying that McCarthy plays quarterback the best out of anyone in this draft. I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, listen, part of it might be he might be talking about like in the pocket, like actually just being able to read defenses, understand, and make plays with his arm. We know he can run the ball, but to play quarterback, it's not just about how fast and how hard you can throw it and getting first downs. There's so much more to it. And to what Jim Harbaugh said, he has that killer instinct. When things get tough, he makes big plays. And we saw with Caleb Williams, there were times where it looked like he was crumbling under the pressure. There were times, and listen, I've seen Jaden Daniels for 5 years. He puts up great stats, but his teams don't really win all that much. I mean, LSU had 2 losses, and they were good.
Defense was Swiss cheese this year.
Yeah, and listen, he was good, but there's something about a quarterback when all the pressure's on their shoulders, who make that throw, who make that play. And J.J. McCarthy for 2 years has basically done that. He's made play after play after play when the team needed him. And that's something that can't be quantified in stats. And you talk about the Commanders, Cliff Kingsbury's there in Washington. And he's one of those guys who's cocky enough, who thinks that he could probably make any quarterback work.
I mean, he's the OC, not the head coach. He's not the GM.
Right, but
he's not making the pick.
Right, but I'm sure Dan Quinn is going to an extent,
consult him.
Not just consult, defer to him to an extent. Who's the quarterback that fits into your system the best?
I would not trust his track record. In the NFL, I would not trust his track record.
Well, I mean, he did pretty well with Kyler Murray. Kyler just got hurt a lot. Kyler Murray was an MVP candidate.
It was the same thing every year. They started out strong,
and then
down the stretch, they were terrible.
And then, yeah, but that's why he's not a head coach. But offensively, Kyler Murray was putting up stats. He was an MVP candidate. And in college, all Cliff Kingsbury did was create like high-caliber quality quarterbacks that came into the NFL. So Cliff Kingsbury can be a quarterback, quote-unquote, whisperer.
To me. He's like Kellen Moore, where everyone tells you he's so great, he's so great, he's so great, and I just don't usually see it. And I believe Kingsbury's better than Kellen Moore, but Moore was supposed to be a head coach, and he bounced around from OC to OC. Here's the thing, though. Even if it was in a limited sample size, I'm not saying that McCarthy can't be good, but this idea that he should now be going to, I don't think you give me 2 names from the quarterback position in this draft where McCarthy at any point should be the second quarterback off the board. And I'm not comparing him to these 2 guys because this guy had a lot more success. McCarthy's had a lot more success in college. But a lot of times people sell you off potential. Like the potential of Zach Wilson, the potential of Trey Lance. And both those guys are begging for jobs now in the NFL. Now, to be fair, there was a lot of potential about what Jordan Love could turn into. And in year 1 as a starter, Jordan Love did play well. But the hype for one J.J. McCarthy doesn't stop here. If you already heard Pelissero, you already heard Jim Harbaugh. Now let's listen up to a man that actually has a pick that will be looking for a quarterback in this draft. Because Harbaugh has Herbert. So let's drum up the noise, and you get a player to fall. Maybe a player falls because McCarthy goes 3 or 4 in this draft. And then you're sitting there at 5 and you get a non-quarterback. Here is Antonio Pierce of the Raiders. He shares his thoughts on J.J. McCarthy.
I think it's a very talented group. I mean, we interviewed most of those guys at the Combine, had great conversations with them. J.J. McCarthy, you're talking about a national champion, a winner. So I don't know how he's not in the top 3, if you want to be honest.
Top 3. Well, we know Williams is in the top 3 for everybody. Pierce was on the staff at Arizona State and has a great relationship with Jaden Daniels. So now we know the Raiders' 3 preference at quarterback, unless that's a smokescreen, where he's saying it's Williams, it's Jaden Daniels, and McCarthy in some order.
It's all smoke screens. That's why I'm not buying it. I'm not saying that McCarthy's not going to. I'm not saying that McCarthy couldn't be a top 3 quarterback in this class. I'm not saying that McCarthy is not the best quarterback in this draft class, like Jim Harbaugh says. What I am saying is I don't trust a single thing that comes out of the owners' meetings. I don't trust a single report that we hear from behind the scenes. And I don't believe any of this stuff. It's all smoke screens every year.
So I got to get to Brad Underwood, the head coach of Illinois, in just a second. But first, I need a 30-second opinion from Stuart Kovacs. He is our Raiders expert here. The Raiders trade up in the draft, and they select J.J. McCarthy in the top 4. Oh, wow. It's that negative.
It's pretty bad. It's one thing if McCarthy fell to them at 13, which I guess I kind of thought would maybe be an option
which would be a good fit.
A month ago. But trading up for McCarthy, who I'm not a believer in, I think that would be pretty disastrous. I don't know. I wouldn't be a fan of that.
Okay, there we go. Raiders, GM Stuart Kovacs says no to trading up for J.J. McCarthy. Brad Underwood joins us next. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
We continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Illinois has advanced to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2005. The Illini will next play coming up Thursday evening in Boston against Iowa State. And now joining us is their head basketball coach in Brad Underwood. Coach, first and foremost, congratulations. I would ask you how you're doing, but I think I know the answer to that one after punching a ticket to the Sweet 16. So thanks for coming on.
No, I appreciate you having me, and it's always a good feeling.
Well, I love the way that you celebrated after the game. Usually you see the coach just getting soaked with water, but you elected to fight back, coming in with that super soaker with the water gun. How'd you come about that one?
A very, very thoughtful strength coach was thinking of my well-being there, and figured it was time for me to get these guys back a little bit. So the goggles and the super soaker were waiting when I walked in from the floor. So yeah, it was nice to get back a little bit and not just take all the cold water.
No, that's awesome. What are your first thoughts about advancing to the Sweet 16 when you've had it marinate for a few days and you look back knowing that your team's playing for a trip to the Elite Eight coming up Thursday evening? Just what comes to mind?
Yeah, you're pleased, you're excited, there's a lot of positive vibes and positive momentum, and you're excited for the program, the university. This is such a storied program. You're excited for your fans. We sell out every single night here in Champaign, and great fans. They travel with us. You're happy for them. It's been a while, and so you look forward to the next opportunity. To keep doing what these guys work so hard for, and you're happy for them, and it's very rewarding. It's a lot of fun. You got to take in these moments and enjoy them, and I think this group's doing that pretty well.
It's not just this group that finds a way to get this program to a Sweet 16. It's other groups as well that unfortunately came up short. Just how much were you maybe thinking about in the aftermath of the game about guys like Kofi and Io that had really good teams at Illinois, but unfortunately couldn't get to the Sweet 16?
Well, it takes everybody, and unfortunately, winning is really hard. And great programs sometimes get beat. And that we were a 1 seed, we got beat. We had All-Americans and Kofi and Io, great players, Trent Frazier, DeMonte Williams, guys who laid the foundation for what we've built here. And there's not a day goes by you don't think about those guys, and you're disappointed they didn't get to do this, but we're not here without them. And they've all hit me on text. They're all ecstatic, and Illinois is bigger than a team. It's a great university. It's a great program. Very proud alums, and so excited for all of them.
Coach Brad Underwood here with us, the Fighting Illini back in the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2005. There's so many different eras of college basketball, Coach, right? We've seen developing players for 3-4 years. We've then seen one and dones, and now it's really the transfer portal era. Marcus Domask, what he's been able to do for your program coming in from Southern Illinois, just kind of reflect back on that transfer portal process, and how did you guys know that you were getting a pretty damn special player?
Well, we knew we were getting a good one. He had 1,600 plus points. He was an all-league guy. They had success. Been really well coached. His dad is a high school coach, so we knew here's a guy who's grown up in the gym, knew what work was, and then, in the conversations we had, he wanted more. He wanted development. He wanted to continue to grow his game. He wanted to play on the biggest stage. He wanted to be in the NCAA tournament. All those things resonated, and then it was, how do we make him fit? How do we get the most out of this guy? And it took some trial and error. We had to make some changes during the season, and now we've put him in a situation to be successful. He's helped elevate everybody on our team, and but we knew what we were getting. We just didn't see it, until you go through it. Is he tough enough to do it? But we saw a lot of success and a lot of positive things in the process.
Yeah, you can't fully know what you're getting, but when you talk about potential, and we've seen so many players transfer from smaller schools to bigger schools and big-time conferences, are there like certain signs that you see that okay, a player has what it takes to embark in what is Big Ten basketball and be a part of a team that won a Big Ten championship?
Yeah, most of it goes back to character. The character of the kid. We all see the talent. We all see the running, jumping, the skills. But until you really get to know somebody and what they stand for and who they are and their level of work, everybody says, well, he's tough. Well, that's a relative term. That can, somebody's level of toughness might be different than mine. How do they handle adversity? How do they, do they want to get in the weight room on their, and work and continue to get better? All those things play into it. And, it's our job as coaches, the portal's speed dating.
Yeah.
And the reality is you got to dig as deep as you got to dig to find out what you want to find out. And, we just felt that was a great match.
Seems like you're pretty good at speed dating though, Coach, with some of the transfers you've been able to bring in.
We got a great staff that do a really good job of knowing what fits our program and what guys do. So we like to think we're sure not the master of it, but we like to think we know what we're doing a little bit.
Coach Brad Underwood here with us. So you talk about how it's been a work in progress this year. You see what your backcourt's been able to do with Terrence Shannon and Marcus Domask as of late. Why have they been able to get things moving in the right direction, especially this time of year, and complement each other so nicely?
Yeah, we were okay early in the year. We were playing a lot of five-out stuff. Coleman Hawkins returning was a big part of this, and he's a pick and pop five man who could really shoot it. And then we had a returning starting center in Dane Deja, and one of the real challenges was figuring out how to play. And then Ty Rogers, a guy that's started a lot of the year at the point for us, and it was just figuring out the right way, putting guys in matchups, putting guys in the spaces that they could succeed. And at first, what we were doing wasn't quite right. We were turning the ball over. It was a little more of a struggle, and then we went to booty ball, and now it's I say it all the time. We're starting 5 power forwards, and just finding the matchups. We're not an overly complicated team in terms of being able to pass, but it's very much been successful and putting guys in situations that they can flourish in.
I'm glad you brought up Coleman Hawkins, because I was watching his post-game presser after the victory against Duquesne as your squad advances to the Sweet 16. Brad Underwood here with us for a few more minutes on the Zach Gelb Show. And he said, obviously, we're excited, we're elated that we're advancing to the Sweet 16, but he reiterated, you don't want to get too high on the emotional feeling because the goal is to still win a national championship. To have that kind of leadership and that tone be set immediately after the game, just can you even place a value on that as a coach on what it means to have a Coleman Hawkins?
Yeah, that made my day hearing that, sitting up there next to him, because it's Coleman's a 4-year guy. He's a guy that's never left, and he's gone through the adversity, he's gone through the trials and tribulations, life by experience, as a college basketball player, and and he gets it. He understands what this thing's about. And yes, it is a great accomplishment to win a Big Ten tournament championship, to get to the Sweet 16. But this group has set standards that they haven't let anything get in their way. And it's been an up and down season in terms of the roller coaster ride, but yet they've always come back to the same thing, and that's we're trying to get to Arizona. We're trying to win a national championship, and they haven't let anything deter them from that.
You clearly have a hungry group, because Coleman also said he thinks there's a different level that this team has not reached yet. What do you think that level is, and how much better do you think this team could be?
Well, we're a team that was a top 10 team early in the year defensively, and we've got the number one offense now in the country, and yet we've been inconsistent a little bit at times on the defensive side, and I thought we made some big strides this weekend. A Duquesne team who's got two great guards. Morehead State is as talented offensively as anybody out there. And I thought we did some really good things, holding them to 31% shooting. So we're getting there. I think that's an area we've got to find that consistent play that we had early. And if we get to that, then we can be really, really good.
Obviously, we got a bunch of great games to kick off the Sweet 16, but when you look at your opponent coming up, Iowa State in Boston, what are the first few things that jump off the page with the way that they play?
Yeah, TJ's doing a great job. They play extremely hard. Obviously, you win the Big 12 championship in the tournament like they did. They've beaten Houston twice, who's a 1 seed. I think on the defensive side that they're very talented. They know exactly what they're doing on that side. They don't make a ton of mistakes. They've got a very, very good point guard. And they're a team that has an identity. And, when I watch them, I know what they practice, and I know what they work on. It's very evident in terms of what they do. So they're a 2 seed for a reason. And it's going to be a dogfight, and we're going to have to play awfully well to beat them.
Well, Coach, congratulations. I know a few weeks delayed on the Big Ten championship, and what a heck of a performance it was this weekend to get to the Sweet 16. Good luck the rest of the way, and thanks so much for giving us some time.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
There he is, the head coach of Illinois, Brad Underwood, joining us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Still to come in 50 minutes from now, Steven Ashworth, who was the star of Creighton's come-from-behind victory to get the job done in double overtime. He led the Blue Jays in scoring. He'll join us today at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. We'll take a timeout. When we come on back, we'll update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment the News Brief. But first up, with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, owners approved the banning of the hip drop tackle today that caused a number of injuries last year, and the move next year will carry a 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down. Shohei Ohtani will speak to the media today in a little more than an hour from now after allegations of gambling and theft by his former interpreter. It's unclear what he'll say because he's currently under investigation by Major League Baseball and the IRS, and he also will not take any questions. The coaching carousel is spinning around a lot right now as Stanford has found its new head coach, naming Washington State's Kyle Smith, while Danny Sprinkle leaves Utah State to take over at Washington. Vandy has hired James Madison's Mark Byington as its new head coach, and Darian DeVries leaves Drake to take over at West Virginia. The NBA's 2 best teams are in action tonight. The Celtics currently playing .800 basketball. They've won 9 in a row and look to extend the streak to double figures tonight in Atlanta, while Denver has been the best team in the West and will host the Grizzlies tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Football season never stops on CBS Sports Radio.
Tune in to Maggie and Perloff mornings 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern for the latest NFL and college football news. Always live 24/7 on the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All right, he's Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio News Brief time. In about an hour, I believe, Shohei Ohtani, I can't even say he's going to address reporters. Because usually when you say address reporters, you think that's going to be like back and forth with the reporters. He will talk to reporters. He's just not going to take any questions. So he's going to give some litigious statement, I guess is the best way to say it. Now, I wonder who his new interpreter is, because we know the old interpreter is in the middle of this whole controversy where the interpreter may have been the one gambling. Some people think it's Ohtani, but there's two sides of the story here, and it makes no sense that the interpreter was in, $4.5 million of alleged debt. And then the story from the interpreter was Ohtani was just being a great friend and he was lending you the money so I could get out of debt. And then the Ohtani camp says, no, that's not true. He stole the money from us. So we're not getting told something. But anytime there's a story involving betting with athletes, everyone thinks of Pete Rose. And I've been trying to get in contact with Pete Rose for the last 2-3 days to get him on the show. And last night I'm perusing social media on Instagram. My buddy Josh Booty, the former MLB player and also college quarterback at LSU, he got sent the video, I think it's with a baseball agent and Pete Rose. And then Josh put out the video, and I asked him if we could play it on the air and if we could post it. And he said, of course. This is Pete Rose with his first comments about the Shohei Ohtani situation. Listen up to the Hit King.
Hey guys, Matt Thrash here, enjoying some March Madness with my great friend Pete Rose. And we were talking about the current goings on in baseball right now, and Pete wanted to mention something.
Well, back in the 70s and 80s, I wish I'd have had an interpreter. I'd be scot-free.
There you have it from the Hit King.
He's 100% right here. And you got to chuckle at this because either Ohtani did something wrong, but the interpreter was the one gambling, or Ohtani was gambling and now the interpreter is is getting the blame here. I just find it funny, and I'm not being like serious. I'm like, oh, Pete Rose had an interpreter that he would be scot-free, but the whole interpreter right now is being used as a front to maybe undercover the truth here, where maybe the interpreter who was gambling, but then why is Ohtani getting so, or his camp getting so defensive about the whole money and the wiring and all that stuff? So I chuckled that was the comment of Pete Rose. And don't get me wrong, Pete Rose is a sleazebag. Like Pete Rose, the person, look it up, not good, obviously, with all the allegations and things that he's been accused of throughout the years. But if I'm Pete Rose, I'm hoping Ohtani was gambling. And here's why. Because I don't think Major League Baseball has the cojones to sit him down for an entire season. And you basically use Pete Rose now to make you money, but you can't reinstate him to put him in the Hall of Fame. But you wouldn't take Ohtani off the field for an entire season. So for Pete Rose, I'm begging that Ohtani was involved in this because maybe it eventually gets you into the Hall of Fame.
I mean, listen, whether he was gambling or not, let's say he was. Worst case scenario, he was gambling, right? All of the evidence says that he wasn't betting on baseball, right? So let's
we don't know.
What?
We don't know.
Well, I mean, at least coming from the investigation into the guy, the bookie, and the bookie himself has said it wasn't Ohtani and there was no bets placed on baseball
so
at all.
far, there's nothing tangible that I can latch on to say that he was gambling on baseball. And I said this last week, I don't think he was. I think that this was the interpreter.
But for me, Pete Rose has found every opportunity to skirt accountability. The only time he ever really admitted it was when he was trying to sell a book, right? That he did something wrong.
Well, he basically admitted it here.
And he's still, so he's admitted it now since, right?
Yeah.
But it took him writing a book for him to finally admit it after years. And he still barely takes accountability.
But does
for
that
him to
shock
even
you?
say this, even jokingly. Well, it does. It upsets me
Let me
because
ask you
I
this.
want Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, but he...
Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
Sammy Sosa, the other day when he was in Chicago, got asked about the steroid usage. And he said to the reporter, I'm surprised that you're asking me about that question. I wasn't expecting that coming from you. When people do things wrong, and everyone knew for years they did things wrong, unless if they can make money off of it, they usually don't admit that they were wrong, even when everyone knew that they were wrong.
Unless they have integrity. Like Mark McGwire came out tearfully, was like, I was wrong. I did, he came out and said something. And listen, Sammy Sosa was my favorite player. So it upsets me that Sosa hasn't come out. But at the end of the day, the guy has over 600 home runs. He's had 3 seasons of 60 home runs. He probably will get into the Hall at the same time that A-Rod and those guys get in.
I don't know about. I think Sosa should get in. I'm pro steroids in the Hall of Fame. What happened. What Pete Rose example. What happened. Right. He was in the wrong. But he's the hit king. He has to be in the Hall of Fame.
Like, you bet on baseball when you were a coach.
Sure.
It was the one thing you can't do.
Sure.
Take accountability. Stop being like, if I had an interpreter. No, you bet on baseball, interpreter or not. You would have been banned for life.
Sure, but
You're
it is
an
a
idiot.
funny
Shut
line.
up.
It is a funny line from Pete Rose.
No, it's funny, but it pisses me off.
Well, all right. But why are you getting so upset?
Because
you sound like
Pete
you're about to
Rose
cry.
for 2 decades lied to her face, and when he finally came out to tell the truth, it was to make money. And
Sure.
now that somebody else is embroiled in it, he's finding pleasure in it, and he's finding again no accountability. I could have gotten away with it if I had the same excuse. Shut up, take accountability, and just deal with it.
I'm just laughing at how worked up you're getting over this. This is not something that's new.
Because baseball's my first love, and Pete Rose makes a mockery of it. Because he loved the game so intensely, and he played it so hard, and now he just spits at it. Pisses me off.
All righty. You got everything out of your system?
Yeah.
You need some soft serve ice
move
cream?
on.
We need to cool you off a little bit.
Pete Rose, come on.
Maybe I should be like Brad Underwood, and I should bring a water gun into the studio, and we could hit Samter with the water gun to cool him off. I wasn't expecting that. You're really I thought you were about to cry. I really thought you were about to cry. Let's go to Gerard Mayo, the Patriots head coach, on the possibility of the Patriots taking Drake May at number 3 in the draft.
Drake May had a fantastic interview at the Combine. He brings a lot of energy. You can tell he has that leadership ability. And, also the exciting part about a guy like Drake May is the ceiling. Like, there is really no ceiling with a guy like that. Now, I would say a guy like Drake May, he has a lot of room to grow. He's a young guy. Honestly, he hasn't played football nearly as much as these other guys. So that's definitely something that we've looked at. But he definitely is going to develop.
When you're at 3 overall and it's a draft like it is this year, you could move down and hit 2 other spots in the first round.
That's right. That 100%. I know everyone likes to think they have the special formula to picking players, but honestly, the guaranteed way to win is to accumulate more picks. And so if we don't feel convicted at number 3, we are willing to do that as well.
Here's what I don't get about Drake May not playing enough football. He played 2 seasons at UNC. And that's the part where I don't understand with some of the analysis, because then when guys play like 4 or 5 years, usually it gets held against them. They played too many years of football. So I don't think there's a right formula for this, but the common theme that you hear from so many people, and you even heard Mayo kind of point to it, a lot of people that follow the position and have to scout the position don't think he's ready to play in the NFL for this upcoming season. And I understand what draft picks potential and what you end up doing 3, 4, 5 years from now. Patience isn't usually afforded really anymore in the NFL. Outside of the Green Bay Packers, I would not be thrilled if my football team ends up taking Drake May in at number 3. Let's go to the recently retired Aaron Donald. He was chatting on Twitter on the next Aaron Donald.
Anybody out there right now where you're like, that could be the next Aaron Donald?
I would say TJ Watt. He's a guy that consistently been doing it every single year. He should won a couple more defensive players than he kind of got snubbed a couple of times. I ain't gonna lie, but he's that guy right now.
Man, Micah Parsons must not like that answer. If you listen closely, you hear Micah Parsons just punching a pillow. That's what I hear, screaming into his pillow. It just shows you. Real recognizes real. Greatness recognizes greatness. And yeah, TJ Watt probably should have more accolades to his name. And that's what I've said before. I do believe that it's splitting hairs, but I do give the edge to TJ Watt over Myles Garrett. Those are the 2 best defensive players, though, currently in football, now with Aaron Donald out. Let's go to 49ers general manager John Lynch, the Pro Football Hall of Famer, on Brandon Ayuk and the Steelers conversation. Now, there could be a trade potentially, and John Lynch threw cold water on that.
I was just with Mike Tomlin and, at the Michigan Pro Day, and Mike coached me, and so we're very close. And he's like, bro, what's going on? Like, I promise you, we got nothing's going on there. We're actively talking with Brandon, trying to figure something out. And we have a good history of working with the guys we want to get done to get something done. And it takes 2 sides, so can we do that? We'll see. But we appreciate the heck out of Brandon and who he is as a player, and we want him to be a part of the Niners, and so we're going to work towards making that a reality.
Well, they've been in messy contract situations before with receivers, and they ended up getting it to work with Deebo Samuel. Now let's see if they can find a way to find the money in order to keep Brandon Ayuk happy. It would not surprise me, though, if this continues to get ugly and Ayuk continues to comment it and drop things on social media, if eventually they just say, okay, at the draft, let's try to find a way to trade him and get maybe a first-round pick back for him. Let's listen up to Matt Painter, the head coach of the Purdue Boilermakers. He defends his big man, Zach Edey.
You see people, around the country, even, fans, but even people that cover the game say he's just tall. What would you say to the people that say that are only looking at the size and not just the game?
Yeah, they just shouldn't cover basketball. Yeah, And so, like, you go to school and you learn things or whatever, but we all don't like every single class we're in, right? It's kind of a necessary evil. It's like going to work. Like, you don't like everybody you work with, or you don't like certain parts of your job, and, it's tough, right? You got to be able to deal with, like, certain things that are difficult. And so I just think everybody should, like, take tests on their knowledge of what they're doing. Like, I think all coaches should take a test so they understand refereeing. And I think all referees should take a test so they understand coaching. And I think all journalists should have to take a basketball quiz or a test, or anybody that tweets, they should have to be able to do it. And if they say something so moronic as that, then they should have to have a probationary status where they can't tweet for like 3 months. I think it'll help like society, like just try to knock out the fools, so they don't have to, meet at the local Walmart and say things that don't make any sense.
You know who he sounded like there when he was rambling about this? He sounded like the late, great Mike Leach a little bit. Like, I feel like that would have been a Mike Leach type of rant. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. The only thing I will say is, Coach, maybe you should have to take a media quiz as well. And then if you don't do well in the media quiz, then maybe you can't speak to the media. But I thought that was a good, clever response. I want to say, Samter, some of it was serious and then some of it was marinated in sarcasm. And I would think more and more as you went on, it was marinated in sarcasm. But there was a point behind that, and that was a lot of people that comment about Zach Edey don't know a damn clue what they're talking about when it comes to basketball. But anyway, it is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. The show is flying by. We still have 60 more minutes to play. Steven Ashworth, guard for Creighton, was their leading scorer. Is going to join us 25 minutes from now. But when we come on back, the Bills are trying to be contenders, but they keep on having a pretender attitude. I'll tell you why next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Steven Ashworth, guard for the Creighton Blue Jays, going to stop by 20 minutes from now. He led Creighton in scoring over the weekend in a game where Creighton was able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat in double overtime. It looked like Oregon was going to upset them, and this Creighton team, which has been trying to get back to the Elite Eight so they could punch their ticket to the Final Four this year, it looked like they were to come up way short, but now they are going to the Sweet 16, and they have a chance at redemption. As we know, a year ago, they lost in the Elite Eight to San Diego State by 1 point. And now they have a phenomenal matchup against Tennessee coming your way later on in the week. And you look at the early part. I'll get to Sean McDermott in just a second with what he had to say to the NFL Network. But you look at the early schedule for the Sweet 16 on Thursday. You have Clemson, Arizona. The Clemson story is phenomenal. It's been a massive win for the ACC so far this year in March. The only loss that they have in the tournament was Virginia, who didn't belong anyway. Arizona, we're all hoping they do get to the Elite Eight because I would like to see them go up against UNC with the Caleb Love connection. You have San Diego State, UConn, a rematch of the national championship game from a year ago. Alabama, North Carolina, Illinois, Iowa State. That's the Thursday slate. Right now, I do think Arizona will beat Clemson. UConn, I would not bet against them the rest of the tournament. I'm talking about on the number of 10.5 points. That seems low. Illinois, Iowa State, I think that's a toss-up. It could go either way. I'll take the dog just out of principle right now, so I'll take Illinois. plus the 1.5. The game, though, that I love, and I did not like this team heading into the tournament, but usually when we just want to see one thing, and a lot of people want to see UNC, Arizona in the Elite Eight with a trip of the Final Four on the line, it usually just doesn't happen. With how quick Alabama plays and how many points they put up, I look at that spread of UNC minus 4.5. I think it's begging you to lay the 4.5 points with the Tar Heels. So I will plus the 4.5 points on Alabama, and I may sprinkle some money outright on Alabama. I like Alabama to upset UNC, even though I like Armando Bacot and RJ Davis as well. I would not think I'd be picking against UNC with it being Alabama, but I am now after seeing the gambling line. And another line that made no sense from this weekend was the Gonzaga-Creighton game and the Gonzaga-Kansas game. That line was Gonzaga minus 3.5. I think everyone was loading up. And I know the sports books, just because like all the favorites won this weekend, they took a beating. But I would have to imagine a lot of people are on Kansas because Gonzaga was the worst seed, compared to Kansas. So Gonzaga's a 5 and Kansas is a 4. When I saw that number, I hammered when I was at the Shore this weekend, Gonzaga laying the 3.5 points. And that game was good for a bit, and then it just ended up becoming a massacre. So I'll get to the Friday games in just a second, and I'll give you my take on Sean McDermott in a second as well. But I want to play this was Bill Self, the Kansas coach, after the Gonzaga game, and this team lost, and they got blown out in the second half. Here is Bill Self on the second-round loss for his Kansas Jayhawks.
Is it something you already feel like I got to start thinking about next season, or you got to absorb this for a little while?
Well, I think for the last month I've been thinking about next season, to be honest. Not in the moments during the game, but obviously we played. We had 8 guys on scholarship, and we played. I mean, that were healthy there late, and injuries are part of the game, so that's not an excuse. But we could have done a much better job as a staff, putting more guys out there that we could play, and so that's something that I've thought about for a long time. And the thing about it is in basketball.
So I struggle with this one, and here's why. And I want to go around the room and get everyone's thoughts here on this. I appreciate a coach's honesty, and I like when coaches are honest. I like when they don't feed us just bull junk and coaches speak. But if I'm a player on that team, and I know Kansas, right, down the stretch, they didn't have Dickinson, then he comes back, McCullough out for this tournament, and Bill Self is a Hall of Fame coach. Bill Self has won championships, so Bill Self knows what a championship team is. But the fact that the coach basically admitted after the game that I was thinking about next season a month ago, it shows he had no belief or no thought that his team could win a championship this year. Where it's one thing to think it, but then it's another thing to say it. I know there's so much turnover on a roster from year to year in college basketball now. But if I'm a player on Kansas that's leaving the program now, like graduating, and you have no more eligibility left, I'm a little annoyed and a little heated at Bill Self, because if you're already thinking about next season, I know there's recruiting, I know there's other things that goes on naturally where coaches are always preparing for the next season in college, but I do wonder how present then Bill Self was and how all in he was with this team. And I don't think that's a stretch. But that would annoy me, Samter, if I was an older player and now my career is done in college basketball, when I hear the coach admit after the game, for about a month I was already thinking about next season, because it showed that the coach had no belief in his players.
And the reasoning was kind of lame, too. Oh, we had a lot of injuries. We didn't have enough scholarship guys. So I was thinking about next year to see how we can do it better and making sure we have guys. I mean, I get the idea of like, okay, you're constantly recruiting, so you constantly have to be thinking about the next steps. But for him to say, I was thinking about next year like a month ago, it's just a bad look. And Bill Self's a smart guy, and Bill Self's a championship coach. That's a weird thing to say, and it's insulting to this team, and it's kind of insulting to the profession. I don't like it.
So last year, remember he had to sit out of the tournament because he had the health issues? And he already has that lifetime contract with Kansas. Sometimes you hear coaches, when they're closer to the end of their career, say things that maybe once you find out they're retiring, you go, oh, aha, a light bulb goes off. That should have been a sign that maybe we should have thought the end was nearer than what it actually was. Like you've heard it with Saban a little bit this past year. I pointed it out with the whole quarterback controversy. Jay Wright, we've seen him walk away. And Bill Self is 61. Like he's still a young man in terms of coaching. Like he go coach for another decade, if not more than that, as long as he has his health. I have no concrete evidence about this, but I'll just throw it out there. When you hear a coach already say that he was thinking more about next year than the team that he was currently coaching, so clearly he's back for next year, but is maybe the end a little bit closer than what we would anticipate with Bill Self, and you wonder how many more next years there are and how many more times he's going to go through this when it comes to college basketball. It's just something when I listen to it, I didn't think about it right away, but when I hear it again, and we just played it for you, days removed from it, I just wonder with the trend in basketball and also football with NIL and the transfer portal, how these coaches have been used to doing things for so many years in one way, when it changes, how much more fight do they actually want to give and how much more dedication do they actually want to give to the profession? So I'll just throw that out there to you, Samter, and see what you think on it.
I mean, it's hard to speculate, and I don't know Bill Self's mind, but it definitely does sound like a guy who is thinking more about this other stuff than he's thinking about coaching. And we've heard a lot of these guys, the old guys, saying that the thing that they loved about coaching is not there anymore. They're too focused on other stuff and not enough on the coaching, the stuff that they fell in love with while they got into the profession. So I'm not saying that he's got one foot out the door, but maybe he's thinking to himself, you know what, the coaching isn't as fun anymore because I have to think about all this other stuff all the time. But, listen, we've seen a lot of guys go. I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Self is the next one.
And just to wrap up here on the Sweet 16 on Friday of NC State, Marquette, Gonzaga, Purdue, Duke, Houston, Creighton, Tennessee. The Creighton-Tennessee game I'm most excited for, and I actually think Creighton is going to pull off the upset. Duke, Houston, I think Houston got the scare the other night, and they'll bounce back. That was a wild game late last night where they almost choked it away. Gonzaga, Purdue, I think that's going to be a dogfight. And now people are starting to get hot on Purdue, but Gonzaga is maybe one of the more disrespected teams in this field. And the NC State run is phenomenal. And then you have Shaka Smart's squad advancing to the round of 16, the Sweet 16. So we'll see if they could find a way to get into the Elite Eight. Anyway, there's an interview that's going to be released today, I believe, from the NFL Network. And there's already a write-up on NFL.com. And it gave a little bit of the feeling of the interview. And it's Bills coach Sean McDermott, who the headline is, he says it's narrow-minded to say Buffalo hasn't had success without a Super Bowl win. So here's my thing with the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are trying to tell you that they are a contender, but they keep on failing to show you that they're a contender. And a lot of times you could relate that to attitude. A few years ago, and I love Brandon Beane, but he was on this show 2-3 years ago, and it's when he said, this is not Super Bowl or bust. And I'm like, I said this to him, it's absolutely Super Bowl or bust for you. But I understand there's coaches and general managers, they don't like to put that tag on their team. But here's where I don't get it. The Bills made such a stink about them saying it wasn't Super Bowl or bust 2 seasons ago. Then heading into this season, this past season, they kind of deviated away from that because they literally hung a photo of a Super Bowl trophy in their practice facility so everyone could see what they are playing for. So 2 years ago, I didn't like that the Bills wouldn't admit that it was Super Bowl or bust. Then the Buffalo Bills, with hanging that trophy, basically said it's Super Bowl or bust. And now to start this next season, as you're in the offseason, you have the coach saying it's narrow-minded to say Buffalo hasn't had success without a Super Bowl win. And don't get me wrong, the Bills have been successful. They haven't had the ultimate success, but we are now far away from just praising the Bills for winning the AFC East or consistently making the playoffs. And this was an organization from 2000 all the way until Sean McDermott got there through the 2016 season that they didn't make the playoffs. So McDermott in year one gets them to the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor as a quarterback. That was a win. Then they missed the playoffs. They got Josh Allen, though. And then since then, playoffs. But just making the playoffs 5 years in a row isn't what we should be giving you praise for. So you've been successful to some degree. But ever since you made the conference championship game, and then the following season, you blew a game because you didn't squib kick it and your defense couldn't contain Mahomes for 13 seconds, this team's regressed. Where this team has been talked about being a contender, but they keep on showing you they're a pretender. And they've had it from both ways, right? Everyone was on Buffalo heading into that 2022 season. I remember I did an interview with one of our affiliates in Rochester, and I said, I believe the Bills are the team to beat. That was heading into 2022. But with that being said, I'm not picking them to win the Super Bowl. They go, what the heck does that mean? And I said, because everyone is picking them to win the Super Bowl. And when everyone picks one team to do something successful, 9.9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen. So in 2022, I thought the Bills were the best team. And then they get to the division round where they barely beat Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins when Mike McDaniel was basically hitting a G-pad on the sideline. And they barely get to the divisional round. And then the Cincinnati Bengals walked into their home, into the Bills' house, and kicked the crap out of them. Just annihilated them. And then last year, everyone jumped off of you. You got off to a slow start. Then you made people believe again. And in the divisional round, once again, you had an opportunity to slay Mahomes, and you couldn't get the job done. And I think the last 2 years, the Bills are showing you they could be a good team year in and year out. And there is some level of success to just being a good team. But in terms of being a great team, they failed to be a great team. And I understand there's a lot of teams that would love to be the Buffalo Bills and would love to trade places with the Buffalo Bills. But the standard now for the Bills have changed. And in one offseason, you have the GM saying it's not Super Bowl or bust. Then the next year, they hang a trophy of the Super Bowl trophy, a picture of the Super Bowl trophy to basically show it's Super Bowl or bust. And now to start out this season, when they failed to win another Super Bowl or their first Super Bowl again, we're starting off with the coach basically putting bumpers up on how we talk about his football team. It is narrow-minded. Let me be clear to say the Buffalo Bills haven't had success. But it's also narrow-minded of Sean McDermott to float that narrative out there now. If this was 2-3 years ago, the first time they lost to Kansas City, like in the conference championship game, yeah, that would be fair. To say, oh, the Bills didn't win the Super Bowl, so therefore they haven't had success. No, they were building to have really good success. But ever since getting a taste of success, they haven't been able to push this thing forward into hoisting the franchise's first ever Lombardi Trophy. So I just don't like this approach now from Buffalo. And they've been so inconsistent with talking about the way what is successful or not. I think you need the GM and the coach and the quarterback to all come out and just say, yeah, it's Super Bowl or bust. We've had a window. We've done some good things. But now we must win a Super Bowl. And the Bills have just been one of those teams, like Baltimore is too. I don't care what the Ravens or the Bills do in this upcoming regular season. I don't care what the Cowboys do this upcoming regular season. All three of those teams have showed that they could be really damn good in the regular season. But come postseason time, the Ravens have failed. Come postseason time, the Bills have failed. And we all know the drama with Dallas choking Cowboys come postseason time. They always fail. So let's stop beating around the bush here. And let's stop trying to make everyone just feel good that, oh, you know, it's crazy to say we haven't had success. You know, though, recently, you haven't lived up to what your football team should be accomplishing. We'll take a break. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Creighton Blue Jays guard Steven Ashworth off his heroic performance will join us next as Creighton is off to the Sweet 16.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rolling, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. What a thrilling game in the NCAA tournament Saturday evening. and it did go to double overtime. And when the game did end, Creighton was the winner, 86-73 over the Oregon Ducks. And now joining us is Steven Ashworth, a guard for the Creighton Blue Jays, who will be playing in the Sweet 16 coming up later in the week. And he not only made some big three-pointers down the stretch of that thrilling double overtime victory, but he led the Blue Jays in scoring with 21 points. First and foremost, Steven, thanks so much for coming on, and congratulations on what was a crazy game the other evening.
Thanks, Zach. Happy to be here. It definitely was a thriller, and it's why we all love March so much.
How do you kind of process that one? You've had it sink in kind of on Sunday, and now you've had another day to think about it. When you look back at that game, just what does it come to mind really with the performance by the team?
Yeah, a lot of pride and gratitude for just the opportunities to be in those types of moments and to be in those types of games, and to be able to be a part of this team. That there's so many guys that step up in big time moments in that game specifically and throughout the entire season. And so reflecting back on it, I think it's a great confidence boost towards the fact that, all right, we got more games to play, and we're able to eke out a win that maybe looked, as Coach Mack said, a little bleak a few times down the stretch. But that's what's so great about this Creighton team, is that there's a lot of heart and a lot of resilience.
And I think it also speaks to the toughness of this group. Just what makes this group so tough? Because like you said, it looked like things weren't going your guys' way, and then tough teams find a way to pull out a victory like you guys did on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it comes down to experience. When you've been in moments like that before, you can rely back on previous experiences and learn from it and apply into that new situation. All right, what did we learn? And this group's got a lot of experience, and with that comes toughness, comes high IQ, comes playmaking that I think has benefited us throughout the entire season. And so when I look back on how tough this team is, a lot of it is credit to just the amount of opportunities we've had to play in high-level basketball games.
Usually in these long runs in March Madness in this tournament, you've seen teams win a game that maybe they could have lost, and then that finds a different gear for your program. Do you feel like there is a different gear that this group is capable, and maybe that could be put on display Friday evening?
Yeah, I mean, this group has played some high-level basketball games, and there's been some games that we haven't played our best basketball. I think within that game on Saturday night, we saw a little bit of both with our ability to go on a 15-0 run in that second overtime. It's, I'd consider that pretty high level. And then at the other end, we in the first half, we couldn't buy a bucket, it seemed like. And so I do think that this team has another gear, and hoping to get that put together this week and hopefully show it on Friday night.
Steven Ashworth here with us. He had 21 points in Creighton's double overtime victory. My favorite sequence of the game was in double overtime. You hit the three, then Kalkbrenner hits the three as well. Just take a look back when you guys were able to get back-to-back three-point shots in.
Yeah, that was huge. I remember my three-pointer was coming off of a possession before where I came off the ball screen and missed a wide-open three-pointer that I felt like I should have hit. And thankfully, Trey was able to draw two defenders, which he does a lot of times for us, and made the kick out, and I was able to knock down the three. And then we got a stop and coming down the other way. A little bit of a broken play, but we knew that if we got it to Kalk, we'd be able to run off some ball screens or pin downs, and he could find the open guy. And it turned out he was the open guy, and he let that thing fly and knocked it down. And that was the momentum that we needed to carry us on throughout the rest of that second overtime.
I got a chance to see you guys play a little bit on TV during the regular season. I know the Big East tournament didn't go your way, but I was in the building for that. And when I watch you in person, you see the toughness that you possess. You see the confidence that you have on the court. Where does that come from individually for Steven Ashworth when you look back and people see you play? A lot of people refer to you as a tough, confident player.
Yeah, I think that it's been instilled in me throughout a lot of coaches, a lot of teammates, and a lot of hours of practice, honestly. Playing it, I'd say that, the highest level of college basketball in the Sweet 16, in the Big East, doesn't come without somebody that's either really, really talented and really, really big, or really, really skilled. And I'm not really, really big, and so it must have been the latter. And with that, I think comes my confidence that, I've spent a lot of time in the gym trying to perfect my craft and trying to become the best basketball player I can be. And I understand areas that I'm great, and I understand areas that I lack. And so I just try to always stay confident and play towards those things that I'm great at. And I think that continues to give me the confidence. And a huge shout out to my teammates for always staying confident in me.
Talking to Steven Ashworth right now. Creighton is off to the Sweet 16 once again. I know you transferred in this season coming over from Utah State, but this group, when you take a look back at Creighton, they remembered last year getting to the Elite Eight and coming up 1 point short, losing to San Diego State with the trip to the Final Four on the line. You being an outsider, then making this home, did you kind of sense the fire that was really burning in this team to just get back to March and maybe right a wrong from a year ago?
Yeah, no doubt. I think that it's one of the reasons why I came here. I understood that those group of guys that went to the Elite Eight were most likely going to be coming back. And so when I was in the transfer portal talking with Coach Mack and the other coaches, they really just painted the picture of, look, this is the story we want to be telling for this next season. This is what we want to accomplish. This is where we want to be. And we believe you can be a big part of that. And so when I made that decision, it's just really, you look back and it's one of those moments where you got to be grateful to God for just providing opportunities like this, because it doesn't come to everybody. It really is a once in a lifetime opportunity to be playing college basketball even. And then nonetheless, to be having a chance to play in the Elite Eight back-to-back seasons for this Creighton men's basketball team. And so it's a huge reason why I came here. And there's definitely a fire around the guys, the program, the atmosphere, the culture. Everybody wants to be battling for that game and not right the wrong, but, change the outcome in a way from what it was a year ago. And, we can only play in that game if we have a really, really good game against Tennessee on Friday night.
You came into a group that, like you were saying, that had some success together with Kalkbrenner. I know Baylor is now second year in the program. You had Trey Alexander as well. That's not always easy. I know it's the state of the sport with the transfer portal, but why do you think Steven Ashworth was able to fit in so seamlessly and develop that chemistry rather quickly?
Yeah, I think I came pretty early on in the summer. As soon as I committed, me and my wife, Peyton, we decided to move out here about a month and a half before workouts even started. And so some of the guys were still in town, got to build relationships with them on and off the court. And then we had a summer trip to the Bahamas, which you get every 3 or 4 years as a program. And so I think that was a really big kind of stepping stone into getting more minutes with them, more time on the court, more time off the court, to kind of just build that friendship and those relationships that would then benefit us with that high level of chemistry that we display on the court and high level of confidence in each other. And so I've always tried to be a teammate that believes in my teammates. And when you come to a program like Creighton, you can see all the work ethic that they put in outside of practice. So it's easy to believe in those guys, and they do a great job of performing at the highest level when it matters most.
What have you really learned under the tutelage of Coach McDermott this past season? What impact has he made on your basketball career?
Yeah, Coach Mack has done an unbelievable job of just teaching even more so the in-depth of X's and O's and schemes, game plans. He's really good at understanding what our team does well and where we can try to exploit our opponent. And then at the same time, he also has a great perspective on life outside of basketball, and remembering that basketball is something that we do for a living, you could say, and then it's not necessarily who we are, right? I'm not just a basketball player. I'm an individual. I'm a student. I'm a husband. A lot of things outside of that. And Coach Mack's done a really good job of making sure that we stay steady throughout the highs and stay steady throughout the lows, because there's been adversity this season. There's been, a lot of highs this season. So just having to stay level-headed and keep trusting the process. And those are probably the two things that I've really taken away from Coach Mack this season.
Wrapping up with Steven Ashworth, he was leading scorer for Creighton in their double overtime thrilling victory up against the Ducks of Oregon. Creighton going to be going up against Tennessee later in the week as they try to punch another ticket to the Elite Eight. I'm just curious, you being the first year for you in the Big East, and right, UConn's the #1 overall seed. We see Marquette is now in the Sweet 16. You guys in the Sweet 16 as well. There were some schools that felt they were left out from the Big East, and I thought they should have at least, bare minimum, got one more school in. I know you're focused on what Creighton can control, and you guys are focused on getting to a Final Four and maybe even a championship game, but do you feel at all a little bit added pressure when some of the other Big East schools that you did go up against and you know how good they are were left out of the tournament just to give the Big East a good showing in this March Madness?
I think any time that you come into a tournament, you're always trying to represent your conference because it is such a big deal going into the next season and even the season after that of how well did the conferences do. And, obviously it's up to the selection committee and they have their processes. And I don't know what the secret sauce is. I'm, grateful that we got in and was able to put together a season that, resulted in a great seed in the NCAA tournament. But at the same time, there's definitely just that motivation that we want to represent what we all believe is the best conference in college basketball. And I don't think it's a secret that the Big East has a lot of pride about the style of basketball that we play. And there's a lot of good teams in the Big East this season that you go in and you're on the road. It's going to be a hostile environment. And, there's some teams in the Big East that didn't get in that are some of the best basketball teams I've ever played against in my college career. And so, to be able to say that and for them not to be in the big dance is just a testament to how skilled and how good the Big East really is. And so it's cool to see that we've got the three teams that were accepted and invited into the tournament are still dancing. And hopefully that continues for a few more weeks.
Last thing I'll ask you, Steven Ashworth, the opponent coming up later in the week, Tennessee. We know Dalton Connect, another transfer, unbelievable rise, going to be a top 15 pick in the draft this summer and is the SEC Player of the Year. But when you look at the Tennessee team as a whole, what are some things that jump out to you? What do you think are some challenges that could be presented your way coming up on Friday?
Yeah, I think it starts with the man that you just mentioned, very skilled player. Honestly, have watched him outside of the scope of even just, we're going to be matched up against him, earlier in the year. Watching some of those SEC games, especially after we played Alabama, kind of checking in and seeing what they did when they matched up with each other. And then, Zakai Ziegler, really talented point guard, great defender, up with, I believe with Ryan Kalkbrenner for Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. And so they've got a lot of skill on the defensive end, a lot of athleticism and length. And then on the offensive end, some skilled and talented players as well. So a really complete team that obviously I don't know everything about it. Hopefully this week we'll be able to get the scout down and understand where we can go from there.
Well, heck of a performance on Saturday once again. Congratulations and good luck as the week continues to move forward. Appreciate you doing this for a few minutes.
Thanks so much, Zach. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
There he is, Steven Ashworth, joining us from the Creighton men's basketball team. And like I told him, I got a chance to see him in the Big East tournament. They ended up losing the game. But you could just see the toughness and the confidence that he plays with. And with all those names that they have on Creighton, with Kalkbrenner and Shireman and Alexander, you look at him, Steven Ashworth. He's not the tallest guy on the court, but he plays with a ton of heart. And he made some big three-point shots in that thrilling come-from-behind victory where they ended up winning the game in double overtime. And once it got into double overtime, Creighton just ran Oregon finally off the court. But that's what happens. When you go on one of these great runs in the tourney, there's sometimes where it looks like you're going to lose a game, that you find a way to win a game, and it's just about surviving and advancing. Because some people say about Creighton, they didn't play great against Oregon. It doesn't matter, they won. They weren't like Kentucky. They weren't like Auburn, who were in dogfights with Oakland and with Yale. And at every opportunity Kentucky and Auburn had to go win the game, they couldn't produce. For Creighton, they didn't show up. And it was like, all right, they're going to lose this game to Oregon. And then Oregon missed some free throws. And then, boom, they steal the game. And sometimes you'd rather be lucky than be good this time of the year. And the luck was on Creighton's side. And now let's see if they could capitalize and get back to the Elite Eight to try to punch that ticket to the Final Four, which they came up short a year ago. And they'll go up against Tennessee to try to get into that Elite Eight round coming up later in the week. All righty, we'll come on back. When we do return, Shedeur Sanders is already the most intriguing draft prospect for the 2025 draft. And his father, Coach Prime, had a thing or two to say about his NFL future. We'll get into all that. But first up, update time. Let's get to the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Shohei Ohtani will meet the media in just a couple of minutes as his first statement since the story surfaced regarding his former interpreter's alleged gambling and possible theft he will not take any questions, so it'll be very interesting. It's also unclear how much he'll be able to shed any light on the situation, since he is already the subject of an investigation by Major League Baseball. The hip drop tackle is now illegal, banned today by a vote of NFL owners. It'll now be a 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down, and teams will also get a third challenge after a successful one used previously. After getting the Browns to the playoffs this year, GM Andrew Berry and head coach Kevin Stefanski are in line for extensions, with Cleveland.com reporting the two are close to getting them. Kyle Smith leaves Washington State to become the new head coach at Stanford, while Washington is reportedly filling its vacancy with Utah State's Danny Sprinkle. Darren DeVries leaves Drake for West Virginia, and Mark Byington on the move out after James Madison's nice run. He is the new head coach at Vanderbilt. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler inviting you to join me here on CBS Sports Radio for The Bart Winkler Show. Weeknights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Factory Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
It's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Mark in South Carolina says, Zach, who has the best chance to taking down UConn? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I'll give you the way you want me to answer the question in just a second, but I'm going to give you my true answer here first. No one's beating UConn. Like, I'm trying to think of the team that has the best chance of beating UConn, and I would say it's Houston because of their backcourt. And we saw last night, even when everyone fouls out and they almost choked that game away, they were still able to survive and advance. And I would love to see Kelvin Sampson win a national championship game. But I had a monster weekend of gambling. Like, I think I made 10 bets down at the Shore, and I won 8 out of 10 of them. Baylor screwed me. I had Baylor on a money line and Baylor on a spread to complete 2 other parlays. And they were the one team that prevented me from going 10 of 10, which is fine. I'll take 8 out of 10 anytime I can gambling, especially when I won like $50 too at roulette, which is not a lot of money at roulette, but still, it was a good weekend when I was down at the Jersey Shore. But I did make 2 future bets when I was at the Shore. And they both had to do with UConn. Because, like, UConn to win the championship right now is at plus 250. And I don't bet enough at plus 250 to really see, like, a great return on doing the future. But I did Donovan Clingan and Tristan Newton, both of UConn. Final 4 most outstanding player. Clingan was at plus 1,000. Newton was at plus 1,100. So, I just threw 15 and 10 down on both those guys. Donovan, 15 to win $165. Newton, 10 to win $120. That's what I ended up doing. And that's just how confident I am. And that I think it's better to bet 2 individual players on UConn to win the outstanding player of the Final 4 rather than put a future on any of the other 15 teams remaining. And I'm looking at this. Clemson's not winning a championship. Arizona could play UConn for a right to go to the championship. San Diego State plays them coming up on Thursday. I don't think they're going to keep it close. I'd lay the 10.5 points. Bama and North Carolina. Carolina plays defense, but are they going to beat Bama with the way that their offense is? Illinois is a well-rounded team. Iowa State, very good defensively. I like what TJ's done. I can't see either of those teams beating UConn, though. And you look at the teams playing on Friday. NC State, Marquette, no. Gonzaga, no. Purdue, maybe. Duke, no. Houston, potentially. Creighton's a good squad. Tennessee, no. I'm trying to find a way to pick someone other than UConn. And I just said it with the McDermott statement, Sean McDermott, when we led the hour with. Usually when someone tells me, like that year, 2 years ago with Buffalo, that one team's going to win, I usually just pick the other team out of principle. This year I can't. This UConn team, I'll raise the question. Will they have a game this tournament? This is how dominant I think they are. Now, I'm not going to be like Mike Greenberg and say that they're going to make the play-in tournament in the Eastern Conference. I think that's stupid. But will they play a game in the tournament where the final score is UConn wins by less than 10 points? That's how they are going to beat every opponent they play. I'd be stunned if they don't. But will there be a game in this tournament where it is less than 10 points in which they win? Last year, they beat Iona 87-63. And this team is better this year than last year. They beat St. Mary's 70-55. They beat Arkansas 88-65. Gonzaga 82-54. Miami 72-59. And then San Diego State 76-59. So if you're saying, Gelb, you're too bullish on UConn, they can't win a game, or the margin of victory, will there be anything less than 10 points? Well, I'm not great at math, but last year they didn't have a game that they won that was fewer than 10 points. But if you're just reading those scores right there. And this team is better this year than they were last year. I hope I'm wrong. Nothing against UConn. I think it's great for the sport because Danny Hurley is the face of the sport. When you win back-to-back championships, he's that new great coach in college basketball. But this team's better. And anything can happen in a single elimination. I get that. But I really do believe not only did they win the championship, they win the championship in every game that they play in that lead up to the championship by more than 10 points. And they just did it a year ago. And actually, I was looking at the Villanova. By the way, Villanova, the 2 championships that they won under Jay Wright. Everyone talks about the margin of victory from the second championship and that entire run, and so did I. I'll raise my hand on that. I went through it and number crunched it because I read it and didn't think it was right. The first championship team actually had a greater margin of victory than the second, which the first one, everyone thinks the second one had a greater margin of victory because in the championship game, they beat UNC by 3 points. But when you do the total margin of victory, they beat like Oklahoma by 40-something points in one game. It was wild. UConn's the new Villanova. They really are. They're blue blood. They had a great coach. And they're the team to beat in college basketball. So I don't think anyone's beating UConn. If I had to give you a team, though, I would go Houston. All righty. I want to play you this before we let you run. And we wrap up shop here on this Monday. Here is Coach Prime, the legendary Deion Sanders, on the Millions Worth of Game podcast when he was talking about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter in the NFL draft.
Where do you predict Shedeur and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4.
Beautiful.
Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is going to be 1.
That's what I'm talking about.
One of them is going to be
speaking
1.
into existence.
And the latter one would not go behind 4. Now, all this is subjective because I know where I want them to go. Mm-hmm. But I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't going to happen.
Okay, you on point.
It's going to be it's going to be an Eli.
So you're already starting to get the Eli conversation when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. Here's why this could happen. A lot of people forget, and they shouldn't forget it, when they just throw around, pulling Eli. Like when people are saying Caleb Williams pulling Eli, but the Bears are a good destination now with what they have put around Caleb Williams or will put around Caleb Williams. Eli Manning had the backing of football royalty, the Manning family, right? Dad well-respected in Archie. In Archie. Peyton Manning, being his brother. Shedeur Sanders has that backing too. His father is one of the greatest defensive players of all time and one of the greatest personalities of all time. The fact that this is already starting, though, and we haven't even got through the 2024 draft class, and he still has to play another year, just shows you the marketing genius of one Coach Prime. But could Coach Prime advise his kid to maybe avoid a situation or two? Yes. Will the kid listen? Yeah, it's definitely something that's possible. But I can't wait to see how we're talking about Shedeur at the end of the season. Because I do believe Shedeur could be a really good quarterback in the NFL. But I got to see him. And last year, they didn't really have an offensive line. I want to see what the improvements are from last year to this year with some of the changes that they made in bringing an entire new offensive line. I got to think in the Broncos pass up on a quarterback, and then Shedeur goes to, with Coach Prime saying he didn't want to coach the NFL, keep your kid close to home and then get him going to Denver. But I don't know if Sean Payton's the right guy anymore. So I just see that Ohtani speaking to the media through his new interpreter. And the new interpreter just said through Ohtani, I've never bet on baseball or any other sports or never have asked somebody to do it on my behalf. I've never went through a bookmaker to bet on sports. So then here's my big question. Where'd that $1 million wire from your account? Was that your friend actually stealing it who's interpreter, or was that you being a good friend and trying to help out your interpreter who obviously accumulated a lot of debt and piled up a lot of debt through gambling? So we'll get you some of that audio tomorrow. We'll play some of that tomorrow and we'll react to it. I do have a video up on my Twitter page, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, of Pete Rose actually responding to everything going on with Shohei Ohtani as well. That's making the rounds. All righty, fun show today. Big thanks to Brad Underwood. Big thanks to Steven Ashworth. Each and every one of you, whether you like us or you hate us, for listening and tuning in to the show. Big thank you to my producer extraordinaires and Michael Samter and Stuart Kovacs. And we'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Have a great night, everybody. JR coming up next. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.